I always thought my family was like any other. My daughter Lily and I shared a bond that was unbreakable, a connection I thought couldn't be shaken. She was my world. Everything I did was for her. As a father, I had done everything I could to make sure she had a good life. I worked long hours, sacrificed time with friends, and was always there for her when she needed me. I never questioned our relationship. To me, Lily was my daughter, blood and bone. Nothing could change that. But everything changed one evening when she came home from school, her face pale and her eyes wide with confusion. She was holding a small envelope in her hand, an envelope that would alter everything I thought I knew about my family. "Dad, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling slightly. She handed me the envelope and sat down on the couch next to me, looking as though she had just been through something traumatic. I took the envelope, puzzled. "What's this, sweetheart?" Lily hesitated for a moment, clearly unsure of how to explain. "I took a DNA test," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I had to know for sure." I felt a chill run down my spine. A DNA test? I had no idea what she was talking about. "Lily, why would you do that? What do you mean?" I asked, feeling a knot forming in my stomach. She took a deep breath and looked at me, her eyes filled with emotion. "The test came back, Dad. The results? They said you're not my real father." My heart stopped. For a moment I couldn't breathe. What? What was she talking about? I stared at her, the words not fully sinking in. It felt like the room was spinning. "What are you saying?" I finally managed to whisper. "Of course, I'm your father." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how it happened, but I had to know. The test, it showed that you're not my biological dad." I could feel my chest tightening, a sense of disbelief washing over me. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what she was saying. How could this be true? I had always been there for her, loved her like she was my own. She was my daughter. There had never been any doubt in my mind. I looked down at the envelope in my hands, the DNA test results staring up at me. The numbers and details on the page were like a foreign language. It didn't make sense. It couldn't be true. I had raised this girl. "No, this isn't possible," I said, shaking my head. "I've been your father since the day you were born. I've raised you, loved you. None of this makes sense." Lily was crying now, her tears falling freely. "I know it doesn't make sense, Dad. I don't want it to be true either, but I had to know. I had to understand why things felt so off sometimes." I felt a wave of confusion and pain. How could this be happening? How could my own daughter think this? Why would she even feel the need to take a test like this in the first place? But the more I looked at her, the more I realized this wasn't just about the test results. This was something much deeper. And I knew I needed to find the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I sat there for a few moments, completely frozen, staring at the DNA test results in my hands. The weight of the words didn't quite hit me right away. I couldn't process what had just been said. How could it be true? Everything about Lily's upbringing, her childhood, her school years, our family vacations, our late-night talks, it all felt so real, so authentic. How could a simple DNA test change everything? Lily's quiet sobbing snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned my attention back to her, trying to focus, trying to calm the storm brewing in my mind. She was shaking, her face a mixture of confusion, guilt, and sadness. This wasn't her fault. She didn't ask for this, but I had no idea what to say. How could I comfort her when I couldn't comfort myself? "I need to know why you did this, Lily," I said softly, my voice thick with emotion. "Why did you feel the need to take a DNA test? Why now?" Lily wiped her eyes, clearly trying to hold herself together. "I don't know, Dad. I've always had this feeling, like something was off. There were little things, like when people would ask if you were my dad, they'd always say I didn't look like you. Or when I'd hear people talk about biological connections, it just felt like I didn't belong, like there was something missing." She paused, clearly struggling to find the right words. "And then I heard some rumors from Mom's side of the family. I didn't want to believe them, but I needed to know the truth. My heart ached as I listened to her. I could feel my own insecurities bubbling to the surface. Why hadn't I ever noticed? Why hadn't I seen that she felt this way all these years? I had thought our family was perfect, that the bond we shared was unbreakable. I reached out and touched her arm gently. Lily, you are my daughter. No matter what this test says, you are my daughter. That's not going to change. The love I have for you has nothing to do with biology. It's about everything we've been through together. She looked up at me, her eyes still red from crying, but I could see the doubt lingering. But the test says you're not my real father. I don't know what to believe anymore, Dad. What if I'm not who I thought I was? What if all of this is a lie? It broke me to hear her say that. Who she was wasn't defined by a test. It was defined by her experiences, her memories, our moments together. But how could I explain that to her when even I didn't fully understand what was happening? I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Lily, the truth doesn't change who you are or who I am to you. The love we've shared, the moments we've had, they are real. You are my daughter, and I am your father. Nothing will change that. Not a test, not anyone's opinion, not even the truth of what we thought we knew. Lily wiped her face, still unsure, but I could see the slightest glimmer of understanding in her eyes. She wasn't convinced yet, but she was listening, and that was a start. We need to find out what happened, I said, trying to gather my own thoughts to make sense of this situation. We need to talk to your mom. We need answers. This doesn't just affect you, it affects all of us. But no matter what we find out, I need you to know that I'll always be here for you. That will never change. Lily nodded slowly, but I could tell she was still processing everything. Her world had been flipped upside down, and so had mine. But now, we both had a choice. We could either let this DNA test define us, or we could figure out how to move forward together. Let's find the truth, Dad, Lily said quietly, wiping her nose. But I don't want this to change anything. I don't want to lose you. You won't, I assured her, feeling a newfound determination. We'll face this together, and whatever we find out, we'll figure it out together. The following days felt like a blur. I couldn't get the test results out of my mind, and neither could Lily. We went through the motions of our daily routine, but it felt like we were both walking around in a fog, unsure of where we were headed next. The house felt quieter than usual, like a thick tension hung in the air. There was so much unspoken, so many questions we didn't have the answers to. The unknown weighed heavily on both of us. I knew I had to talk to Lily's mother, Sarah, but it wasn't going to be easy. After all, this was about more than just a misunderstanding. It was about the foundation of our family, the one thing I thought had always been rock solid. I had raised Lily as my own for 16 years. I had been there for every step of her life. How could I have not known? How could Sarah have kept something like this from me? I called Sarah, my hands shaking slightly as I dialed the number. When she answered, I could hear the hesitation in her voice. Hello? We need to talk, I said, my voice firm, despite the uncertainty that swirled inside me. I need to know the truth about this DNA test. Lily took one, and it said I'm not her biological father. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and I could tell Sarah was choosing her words carefully. I was hoping this wouldn't come up, she finally said, her voice softer than I expected. But I guess it's time we talked about it. What does that mean? I asked, my heart beginning to race. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't we ever talk about this? Another pause. I could practically feel Sarah trying to gather her thoughts. It wasn't easy for me either, Mike. I didn't know how to explain it to you, how to explain it to Lily. There were things from my past that I didn't want to bring up, things I never wanted to revisit. But you need to understand that I never, ever wanted to hurt you. This wasn't about keeping secrets. It was about protecting all of us. I could feel my pulse quicken. I had to hear this. I had to know what had happened, what Sarah had done, and why I had never known. "What happened, Sarah?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Tell me the truth. Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah's voice wavered. "I wasn't sure if I should tell you, Mike. You were already so committed to being Lily's dad. The bond between you two was so strong, and I thought maybe it didn't matter. The truth was, Lily's biological father wasn't you, but you were her dad in every way that mattered. I never wanted to disrupt that." The words hit me like a cold shock. Lily's biological father wasn't me? I had suspected something, but to hear it out loud, to know it was real, it was like my world was crumbling around me. But even as the shock settled in, there was something else growing inside me. Anger. How could Sarah hide something like this? How could she let me raise a child, pour my love and energy into her without telling me the truth? "Why didn't you tell me?" I repeated, my voice growing sharper. "Why did you let me live this lie? How could you keep this from me, from her?" There was silence for a long moment, and then Sarah spoke, her voice cracking. "I didn't know how to tell you, Mike. It wasn't easy. And I thought it would hurt Lily, hurt all of us. I thought you would leave if you knew the truth. But you've always been her dad. You've always been there for her. And in my heart, that's what matters. Not blood, not DNA, but love. You were her father in every way that counted." I sat there, my mind racing, trying to process the flood of emotions. I had always been the father to Lily, but hearing that she wasn't biologically mine, that something had been hidden from me, stung in a way I hadn't expected. "I don't know what to think right now," I said quietly, my voice filled with confusion. "I need to talk to Lily. We need to figure this out." "I understand," Sarah replied, her voice filled with regret. "I'm sorry, Mike. I really am." I hung up the phone, feeling a heavy weight settle over me. I had always thought I knew the truth, about who I was to Lily, about who she was to me, but now everything felt up in the air. The love I had for her hadn't changed, not even a little, but the betrayal, the silence, it was something I needed to understand before I could move forward. The conversation with Sarah left me feeling drained, but I knew I had to talk to Lily. The truth had been laid out in front of us, and no matter how much I wished it wasn't true, it was. Lily needed answers, and I couldn't keep avoiding it. Later that evening, I sat down with her in the living room, the same place where just a few days ago we had laughed and talked about everything under the sun. Now, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, doubts, and confusion. Lily had been waiting for me to say something, but neither of us knew where to start. I took a deep breath. "Lily, I spoke with your mom. She explained everything to me." She looked at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of uncertainty and anticipation. "And? What did she say?" I could see the fear in her eyes, the same fear she had when she first came to me with the DNA test results. "She told me that I'm not your biological father," I said, my voice steady but heavy with emotion. "But that doesn't change anything between us. You're still my daughter, and I'm still your father." Lily stared at me for a long moment, her emotions written across her face. Confusion, hurt, and something else I couldn't quite place. "I don't know what to think anymore," she said, her voice cracking. "I feel like everything is falling apart. I thought you were my dad. You've always been there for me. But now, I don't know who I am." I took her hands in mine, feeling the weight of her words. "Lily, nothing changes the fact that I raised you, that I love you, and that you are my daughter. No DNA test or biological connection is going to change that. I am your father, no matter what, and that's what matters." Her tears started again and she buried her face in her hands. "But why didn't you know? Why didn't you tell me? Why did Mom keep this from both of us?" I felt a lump form in my throat. "I don't know, sweetheart, but your mom did what she thought was best at the time. She didn't want to hurt either of us. But even if I wasn't your biological father, I've never treated you any differently. I've always loved you as my own." Lily looked up at me, her eyes filled with vulnerability. "But how do we move forward? How do I move forward?" I took a deep breath. We move forward by remembering what really matters. It's not about biology. It's not about the test. What matters is the love we have for each other, the memories we've made, and the life we've shared. That's what defines who we are. You're my daughter, Lily, and nothing will ever change that. Not a test, not some secret. The truth is, you're everything to me. She was quiet for a moment, digesting everything. And then, slowly, she nodded, her expression softening. "I'm still scared," she whispered, "but I'm glad we're talking about this." I hugged her tightly, the connection between us still so strong, despite the chaos of the truth. "We'll figure this out together, okay? Nothing's going to break us." As I held her, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more conversations, more questions, and maybe even more hurt. But one thing was clear. I was still her father, and I always would be. The love we shared was stronger than any test or any secret. A few days later, Sarah and I sat down again. We both knew that there was more we needed to talk about, more truths that hadn't been said yet. I had already come to terms with the fact that Lily's biological father wasn't me, but there were still so many unanswered questions. Why hadn't Sarah told me sooner? What had she been hiding, and how would it change things for us moving forward? "Mike," Sarah began softly, her voice shaky. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I know I can't undo the past, but I want you to understand why I did what I did. It wasn't out of malice, and it wasn't because I didn't think you'd be a good father. It was just complicated. I was young, and when Lily was born, I was scared. I didn't know what would happen. I made decisions that I thought would protect all of us, but I see now that I was wrong. I should have trusted you enough to tell you the truth. You deserved to know." I looked at her, my mind racing. It wasn't an excuse, but I could see the pain in her eyes, the same pain I had felt when I first learned the truth. She had carried this burden for so long, thinking she was protecting me, thinking she was protecting Lily. But in the end, secrets had only caused more damage. "Sarah, I get it, I do," I said, my voice calm but filled with a mix of hurt and understanding. "But you have to understand what this feels like. I've been Lily's dad for 16 years. I've done everything I could to be there for her, to give her everything she needed, and now it feels like the foundation of all of that has been shaken." "I'm sorry," Sarah whispered, tears filling her eyes. "I never meant for this to hurt you. I never wanted you to feel like you weren't Lily's father." "I know," I said, my voice softening. "But I think what I need to hear now is the truth. How did this happen? How did Lily's biological father fit into all of this?" Sarah took a deep breath, as if preparing herself for the weight of what she was about to say. "Lily's biological father wasn't someone I was with for long. It was a brief relationship before you and I even met. He wasn't someone I thought I would be with forever, and when I found out I was pregnant, I didn't want to burden him with that responsibility. I was scared. I made the decision to raise Lily on my own. But when you came into our lives, I saw in you everything Lily needed. You became the father she deserved." It was hard to hear, harder still to reconcile that the truth had been buried for so long, but I couldn't focus on the past. I had to focus on moving forward. Lily needed me now more than ever, and I couldn't let this news tear us apart. "We'll get through this," I said, though I wasn't sure if I was trying to reassure Sarah or myself. "But we have to be open. We need to tell Lily everything. She deserves to know the truth, even if it hurts. I won't hide from her anymore." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with relief and sorrow. "You're right. We've kept this secret for too long. We need to stop hiding." Later that evening, I sat down with Lily once again. She was still reeling from the news, but I could see that she was trying to process everything. We had talked about it before, but now it was time for the full truth. "Lily," I began, taking her hands in mine, "there's more to the story that you need to know. Your mom and I have talked. I've spoken to her about everything, and we both agree that you deserve to know the full truth." Lily looked at me with wide eyes, her uncertainty still written on her face. "What do you mean, Dad?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "Lily, you were raised by me. I've always been your dad, and nothing will ever change that. But we found out that your biological father isn't me. Your mom had a relationship before we met, and the truth is, you're not my biological daughter, but you've always been my daughter. That's what matters." Lily was silent for a long time, processing the information. I could see the confusion still in her eyes, but there was something else there too, a realization, a flicker of understanding. "Dad," she said quietly, looking up at me with a mix of sadness and relief. "I don't know what to feel, but I want you to know that you've always been my dad. You've always treated me like I was yours, and that's all that matters to me." My heart swelled with emotion as I pulled her into a hug. "You'll always be my daughter, Lily. Nothing changes that." The weeks that followed weren't easy. There were still awkward conversations and moments of doubt, but the most important thing was that we were moving forward together. The bond we shared wasn't defined by blood, it was defined by the love we had for each other, the memories we'd created, and the life we'd built. We were a family, and nothing would ever change that. I still didn't have all the answers, and neither did Lily, but we were facing the future together, and that was enough.